And I was like, what? I immediately started laughing, crying. And she was just kind of like, yeah, like have your hospital bags ready. It could be any day. And I just feel a lot of leakage. That was the longest drive of my life to the hospital. Can't move, I can't speak. When I say these contractions just turn you into somebody else, they really do. I feel like I really need a push.
Another nurse comes by and asks me if I'm okay while my wife is over there on the bed pushing a baby out of her.
They got her out, got her on my chest, and I went into shock. It was just a very wild experience. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I thought today's video would be really fun to tell you guys about my unmedicated birth story. I have my husband here.
I was there.
Yes, he was there, and honestly, he remembers a lot more than I do. So I thought it'd be fun to hear both of our perspectives from the day and all of that. It's a little blurry, but I took notes because the day after I gave birth, I was like, I know I'm gonna forget this. So I took some notes, and Sam's just gonna like interject.
And I took some mental notes. They're all up here.
All up there.
Ingrained in my head, seared into my brain. I can never forget them.
Okay, let's start from the very beginning, which is at 37 weeks pregnant. So we go to my 37-week appointment.
Ours. This is our journey.
And I just had this feeling like that things were changing. So I almost felt like it was all in my head, but I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask them to check me, which normally they don't check you at 37 weeks, especially at the practice that I'm at. And so I asked them to check me, and the doctor checks me, and what did she say? You quoted it perfect.
Well, she said, you ready? He said, yeah. And I said, girl, you're 3 centimeters dilated. 70% a face.
And she's like so sweet. And I was like, what? I immediately started laughing, crying, because I was like, oh my gosh, I am not, like, we didn't have anything ready. Nursery still wasn't fully finished, all that kind of stuff. And she was just kind of like, yeah, like have your hospital bags ready. It could be any day. So
that's when it hit me, because I think when guys maybe hear like 3 centimeters, 70%, it takes a while to register in the brain like what that really means. And so when she said get your bags packed, that's when I was like, oh, okay, so that means we're pretty far along. Yeah,
so that was a wild day. Like that completely shifted my entire perspective. I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna go overdue. Like that was kind of my plan in my head, because a lot of first-time moms do. That was Friday, and then the very next morning I started having like some mild, like I guess what I would consider cramps. I was like, this is interesting. So we continued on with our morning, went to the park, and they became super consistent and like kind of stronger, and I was like, whoa. So we decided, okay, let's head back home, and I just had consistent contractions throughout the day that essentially got to the point of where you would go to the hospital. So they had told me, be sure to come to the hospital whenever your contractions are the 411 rule, 4 minutes apart, lasting 1 minute long.
It was 511.
No, it's 411. I know, some people do 511, but they said 411. So 4 minutes apart, lasting a minute for 1 hour. So I'd hit that point, and I remember it was like, okay, this is really not that bad. Like, I don't know, they just felt like cramps. I was like, if this is labor, I got this. So we kept delaying going to the hospital because I was like, I don't know, this isn't that painful. So we get there, and I hadn't progressed at all, and they were like, okay, we'll monitor you for an hour. So they did monitor the contractions, and I was having contractions, but they weren't leading to dilation, which is considered prodromal labor. Had never heard of it, didn't know this was a thing. I was very, very upset. Like, I was so defeated. I never even thought, oh, I'd go to the hospital and be sent home. Long story short, for the next 2 weeks, I was in prodromal labor, having contractions every single day that would lead to nothing. And I probably had 3 incidences where they were really strong, and I was like, okay, this could be labor. This could not be labor.
Yeah.
Fast forward to February 12th, Wednesday night, or Wednesday day, I was definitely feeling the prodromal labor, but I was like, whatever. I didn't really think much of it. I was like, I'm gonna do the mile circuit, which I had been trying a couple times. So I did the mile circuit that afternoon and just really chilled. I had a chill day. Mentally, I was not doing very well from being, you know, having contractions every day that I felt like were in my head. I didn't know if they were real or not. So that night I went and took a bath, which I did every night, and I had 3 really strong contractions, but like still light, manageable, but it was like, whoa, these are a little bit stronger than what I'd been typically having. So I came downstairs right before bed and said, hey Sam, like I had 3 pretty strong ones, like I don't know.
And I went right to sleep. Yeah. I thought nothing of it. I don't know.
I mean, I did too. I went to bed and then I woke up around midnight to really strong contractions that I could no longer lay through. Like I needed to walk through them. But the whole time I'm just telling myself, this isn't it. It never has been for the past 2 weeks. But I was like, well, I need to get up and moving because this is pretty painful. So I took a shower and I was like, I'm gonna dry my hair. I'm gonna curl my hair. Like I'm just gonna, you know, do things to distract myself while I get through this. So I wash my hair and I go out to the living room. This whole time Sam's not awake. I didn't want to wake him up because I was like, again, probably not labor. So I'm out in the living room with Teddy on the birthing ball, just like working through the contractions. And I am sitting there and I just feel a lot of leakage. And I was like, is that my water? So I stood up and it was for sure my water, which this is the one part I actually got on video. So this is when I went in, and this was like at 1:15 a.m. I went in and woke Sam up, and I don't remember what I said. What did I say to you?
Like, hey, I think you just said my water broke, I'm having contractions or whatever. So I get up immediately, but from my perspective, I still wasn't, it didn't really kick in fully. Maybe it's just because I woke up or whatever.
Well, and I didn't say it in like a panic. I was like, hey, my water broke, like we gotta go to the hospital because I had group B strep. So I had to get a certain amount of antibiotics in. So they said if my water broke, I need to head to the hospital, like no matter what, which was kind of upsetting because I wanted to labor at home as long as possible in my brain, and I didn't want to get to the hospital too early and like not have my labor progress. A little pause here. So the whole time I've been telling Sam, like, listen, when you go into labor, you have hours, like there's no need to rush, there's no panic. So, you know, that's all the movies. Like we're not going to experience that. Like people in the car screaming, trying to get to the hospital. That's so rare. And I'm a first time mom, like that's just not gonna happen.
Movies is all I ever knew. So that's all I had to go off of. So Jaclyn calmed that in me. And it's like, hey, it's way different.
I was like, that doesn't happen. I had not had another contraction since my water broke. It'd been like a couple of minutes, and I'm trying to blow dry my hair because now I've got soaking wet hair. It's freezing out, and I was like, I need to get this hair dry. Again, not in the biggest rush. Then I get my next contraction, and when I say it went from 0 to 100, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I was already like groaning, like, oh my gosh. And I looked at him and I was like, we need to call the doula. We need to call my parents. Like we need to get everything together because this is really strong. And I was afraid, since I was already at 3 centimeters, that like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm progressing really, really fast. So we gather the bags. I mean, poor Sam's running around.
In that, I mean, I think you're contracting over there. So really, like I noticed now I need to hurry, and like our bags were packed, but they'd been packed for a while, and so there'd been a couple things that we'd taken out and stuff like that. So there was like a lot of like, I need to make sure that we have everything. And so I'm like rushing and trying to get everything together, put in the car seat, everything. And meanwhile, Jaclyn's having contractions, and I know that the hip squeeze thing or whatever is something that I can do to help with. So while I'm rushing to get everything in the car, I have to periodically go to Jaclyn and like squeeze her hips while she's over there like just breathing through it.
I was
like,
not okay.
It's intense and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get everything in the car. And then the colostrum. You had, gotten a lot of colostrum, and it was in the freezer. And good thing like you made sure
Did I remember that?
No, not you. I remembered it.
Oh,
and
not you.
I went in there and got it. I got all of it and whatever. But I remember remembering that because if I don't know, for some reason I thought if we got to the hospital without that stuff, it would be really bad. But anyways, we got everything in the car. We get in the car, and I think I'll just say that this first part, because we're in the car, and this is like, okay, this looks like the movies. Like,
and it's like 1:45 a.m. at this point.
1:45, nobody's on the streets, and it's like, this is like the movies. Like she's like screaming, not screaming, but just like, you were like,
I was groaning through them.
Anyways, we're in the car, and I'm thinking like, there is a chance that we could have this baby in the car, but habit takes over, and the first red light we get to, I stop, and there's nobody on the streets.
Nobody's around.
And I'm just sitting there like waiting for the light to turn, and Jaclyn's like, I think you can blow past this one.
Oh my gosh, I was so annoyed. That was the longest drive of my life to the hospital. Like we live pretty far from the hospital that we were going to. So we get there, and my contractions are so close together that like I'm getting out of the car, and then I only can walk like 10 feet, and then I'm having another contraction. I can't move, I can't speak, I'm not thinking clearly. I am like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, this has really come on strong.
Yeah.
So there was one point we were right outside the triage doors, And Sam was just, I guess, so worried that like I was literally about to push out a baby.
Yeah, right in the middle of the hallway.
And so he, like, I start to have a contraction, I stop, and he tries to pull me. What did I say? I said...
No. So I'm like pulling, pushing, whatever, encouraging her.
Like trying to get me to move. And
Gently.
I said, I like yelled at him and I said, I will go when I'm ready.
Yes.
Like when I say these contractions just turn you into somebody else, they really do.
I froze.
He said, okay, sorry.
Okay.
I felt bad. I apologize later.
But it's okay. You're entitled to that.
And so we get into triage. And I just have to say, the triage people are so, I mean, not the people themselves are annoying, but the process of triage, trying to get me to sign papers, I'm like, I cannot even think right now. Like, and I eventually was like, can he not just sign this for me? And they were like, yeah, he can sign it. So I get in triage, they check me, and I'm only at a 4, okay? The way I was so like, you're telling me I'm only at a 4 and the pain is this bad, I started freaking out. Like, I was freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? Like, I knew I wanted to have an unmedicated birth, but I didn't know, I don't know, I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to do this? And I instantly lost all confidence in myself.
Yeah, we had, the plan was, and we had talked about it, like, hey, I want to go natural, I don't want to have anything like that, any medications or anything like that. But she told me, like, you know, there may come a time though when I look at you and I say, I can't do this. We never really talked about when that would be, but we kind of assumed.
Him, like, look at me and tell me you can do this. Like, ignore me. That's gonna happen.
But there may come a time past that where it's like, no, I really can't do this, and you're gonna have to make a decision for me to like actually bring on the medication. There was always a chance that was just a possibility, but in the extreme of cases, and not 15 minutes into triage and she's already looking at me and they said she's 4 centimeters, and I'm like, already this is happening? And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like already we have to maybe pull the trigger. I wasn't ready for that.
We did not think I'd be at a 4 saying that. So it was like, oh my goodness, you know, what do we do?
Yeah, am I gonna maybe have to make a decision like we never wanted? And then at the end of it, she's like, why'd you do that? Or something. I just pictured all of it.
Yeah, and I think why I started freaking out was because my contractions were so close together.
Yeah.
And in like all my birthing classes, that was not the case when you're 4 centimeters. Like when you're 4 centimeters, you have, you know, 3 to 4 minutes in between contractions. I was not having that. So I was like, what's going on? I can't do this. This is insane. Yeah. So we get to the room, and at this point, this is when everything gets really blurry for me because all my contractions were back to back to back to back. And when you're having contractions, like, you can't think clearly. So Sam went to go get all of our stuff out of the car. So we get to the hospital room. Sam's no longer with me at this point, and I, from the time my water broke, was feeling very, very nauseous. So I threw up everywhere, which I guess that was just our dinner. Like, your body tries to get everything out before going into labor. So during that time, they were trying to get my IV in, and they could not get it in. I don't know if it was the nurse who couldn't get it, but also because I was having such strong contractions, I was like, whenever it would come on, I was like, get off of me. Like, I had to move. So at this point, now I'm laboring in my labor room, and all thoughts of like getting an epidural left my brain because I couldn't even think about anything else but like getting through the contractions, because I had at least all the stuff up my sleeve of like, okay, I know I have to relax through every contraction, which was what I was trying to do. Like, every time one would come on, I would just try and, you know, groan through it and relax my body and just get through the next one. And by the time I finished, I would go lean back just to rest, and then another one would come on. And then I was like, I need to change this up. So I had said, can I get in the shower? I was really hoping to have the room with the birthing tub. That I didn't even ask for because I was so out of it. So I start doing some like contractions in the shower, which was okay. Like, I found really nothing was helping except for just like being in the position that I was in prior. Every new position was more painful, and I felt like I couldn't really get through it. We got out of the shower because I was like, I feel like I need to push soon. Like, I was starting to get that feeling.
We got out of the shower. And I'll just preface this, we'll come back to it later, but I got a bathing suit on. That was one of the things I packed. So I got into the shower with Jaclyn. My whole thing during all of this, during all of the contractions, is I am squeezing your hips pretty much every time that they're coming on.
Yeah.
With as much strength as I could muster up, and they were so back to back. So I know you were going through contractions, and those were really painful, but you know, I need proper rest in between sets, and I was not getting that rest.
And I did not let him leave my side. Like I needed his touch the entire time. So I said, okay, I feel like I need to push. So they were like, okay, let's get you out of the shower. And I guess during this process.
So I don't have a shirt on. I just have a bathing suit on. I have no socks, no shoes, nothing. And I am like behind her, because you're laboring, like not on all fours, but you're like, they got the bed up and your arms are there.
Yeah, I'm like over the bed.
Yeah, and so I'm behind you squeezing your hips. And in front of everybody else, no shirt on, no nothing, and I'm like, I feel like I need to just like
get your clothes back.
Get my clothes back on.
Because you're soaking wet. It's probably
it was just not a comfortable. I feel like I can't even say that. It was just not comfortable for me. And so you know, I tried to time it well to where one contraction ended, or I could sense one contract. I didn't want to ask her, hey, is that one done, so that I can go and get clothes on. I just thought I could sense it, so I go quickly get my clothes on, but my socks are inside out, and so I go to get my socks, and I'm trying to, you know, fumble with them, put them outside in, put them on, and that's when a contraction comes on, and I just hear Jaclyn go, Sam, where are you?
I was like, where does he have to go? Like, why would he leave me?
Why would he leave me?
Because again, I just to let you know, I did not know that he even put on a bathing suit until after birth, until we were talking about it.
That's how much of a blur it was for you that you didn't even know I did that. So I got one sock on, still bathing suit, no shirt. I go back, do the hip squeeze, and I think it was like the next round or whatever, I was able to get all my clothes on or whatever. I had to ask our doula to like step in for a little bit, but apparently that wasn't, you know, it wasn't the same. I guess there's something about the husband touch.
So at this point, once I got out of the shower too, because I had said, I feel like I'm like in a completely different point, they checked me and I was at an 8. And at this point, it had maybe been 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I progressed from a 4 to an 8 so fast, which explains why the contractions were so painful, so strong. Things were moving really, really quickly, which was my prayer. But I didn't realize that would mean I'd have no breaks in between contractions, and I was literally begging God, please just give me a break. Like, please give me a break. At this point, I remembered there was one like pain management thing that I was going to do. Like at this point, I had the birth comb. We had tried the TENS unit. That did nothing. Like at this point, I went into transition so fast that all those little things that I plan on having that would help were more for like, you know, the earlier parts of labor. So I was using my labor comb. That was very helpful.
You held on to that thing.
Yeah, I didn't let go the entire time.
Yeah.
And then I remembered, oh my goodness, the one pain like management item that I was okay with using that was like medical was nitrous oxide.
Laughing gas.
Yeah, laughing gas. So I remembered at this point when I'm 8 centimeters, like, hey, give me the laughing gas. Like I finally came to, was like, I remember I want to use that. They get me the laughing gas, and that at least gave me a bit more of a clear mind that I didn't have to like groan through each contraction as much. Like I literally, when I say I breathed in that tube.
In and out, never left your mouth.
Never left my mouth until I started pushing.
Like a junkie.
Oh my gosh, it was wild, okay? But it just like took the edge off, and it made my mind more clear, where I finally came back to a little bit more. Like I remember more once I had the gas. So
you weren't laughing though.
No, not laughing. No. Wasn't funny. But that was such a game changer. So then after this point, I was like, okay, I feel like I really need a push. So they checked me again, and I was 10 centimeters fully effaced, but she needed to come down a little bit more. Her station was, I think I wrote it down. Yeah, her station was only a 1. She just needed to come down a bit more before it would make sense to push. Like you can push at that time, but you're gonna be pushing for a while. So I'm at this point, like I'm still practicing bearing down, but that's different than like pushing. And I remember feeling like this took forever, but I guess it was only like, I don't know, my doula said it was like 10 to 15 minutes, but it felt like forever for her to get down to where I could be in a position to like push. And I'm just gonna say this is so funny. So I wrote on my birth plan, don't tell me when to push. And I was meaning like, you know, in the movies they're like 1, 2, 3, push, and then you push. I knew since I was doing unmedicated, like your body will push the baby out naturally, and you'll know when you need to push. No one needs to tell you, and I didn't want to be told what to do. But what I didn't think would happen was like, I thought that they would at least tell me, okay, like let's get into position and start pushing. So I'm wondering, why is nobody like doing anything? Like I'm ready to go, or I feel ready to go, but I don't know if I'm ready to go. I've never given birth. Like, and then it hit me, oh my gosh, I remember I told them, don't tell me. So I look back at my midwife and said, hey, like I think I need to start pushing. And she was like, all right, well, let's get into position. She was so chill, which is like, exactly what I wanted.
There are
like,
pictures of her just like in the corner of the room, just like sitting there waiting, looking. Chilling. It's like, good job, Jaclyn, really nice.
And the room was so chill. Once I, was coming to, once I hit 10 centimeters dilated, my contractions started slowing down a little bit. So I was able to like, I don't know, be more present, I guess. So at this point, I knew I wanted to push on my side. So I get into pushing position. And this was when I really came back to, and I remember seeing Sam, like we had conversations. We didn't know if he would like want to see her coming out, if he could handle that. That's a lot.
Never seen it before. So I didn't know if I would be queasy.
So I look up and I realize, oh wow, he's where he can view everything. And I knew that her head, like everyone was saying, we can see her head. I look at him, I said, are you okay?
Well, you only asked me that because of, like, everyone was asking me if I was okay because of my back.
No, I did not ask you. I asked you because I didn't know that was going on.
Everybody else thought it was because of my back.
No.
Because I made a whole spectacle of it.
No, which we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I thought, I just saw you for the first time because I guess you were
behind me. I guess I was behind you.
And I thought, are you okay?
I had no idea.
Are you getting queasy?
I was answering because of my back. Oh, that's funny. I had no idea.
So while I'm in pushing position, whenever you're on your side, somebody has to hold your legs. So Sam was
oh my gosh, I just feel like this is the trauma of that night, really. The bed is like super low, okay? So already not a good start for this. Someone has to hold her leg up, because why would you have your legs closed? You got to do it kind of high, but the bed's sort of low, so you're like, bent over like this, put a massive strain on my back, and I herniated my discs 4 years ago, so that pain was coming back, and I felt it creeping back in, and I'm wincing in pain, but I'm like, be a man. Your wife is giving birth right now. Like, you cannot say anything. Like, you got to just herniate your disc, doesn't matter. You can't say anything, so I'm holding it there, and I'm about to start crying in pain to the point where I'm about to actually say something, but a nurse sees, I guess, my face, and she offers to help out, so she comes in, and apparently Jaclyn noticed the difference between me holding her leg versus the nurse. The nurse actually probably held it a lot better than I did. I didn't know where it was supposed to go.
Well, in the beginning it was fine, but I could tell that he was starting to waver.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
And then I could tell that there was a change of person because it became still again.
And so it was just wild. So she came over, held her leg, and when I got to release, when I was like this, she let go. Oh. And then I walk myself over to the couch, and the doula, another nurse, comes by and asks me if I'm okay. Like, are you doing good? Like, do you need anything? While my wife is over there on the bed pushing a baby out of her. It was just like, I never thought I'd be in this position, but my back's okay. I got to take turns with the nurse again and, like, help out.
It's very understandable.
Pull my weight.
I felt like I pushed for a really long time, but apparently I only pushed for 30 minutes. And what was so hard about it was I knew that I was really wanting to prevent tearing. Like, that was my whole motivation or not whole motivation, but a lot of my motivation for a natural birth. I have other things, but like, an epidural, you're more likely to tear because you can't feel when your contractions are coming.
Right.
And your body will like naturally push the baby out. So I was pushing or breathing the baby down, as best I can explain it, while I was having a contraction. Well, once you're like pushing, your contractions really slow down. So it was really difficult because she'd be right there and then my contraction would stop. And so I would feel the pressure of her being right there, but I wasn't pushing because I was waiting until, I could breathe through it and push her with my contractions. So that was really, I think, what made it feel so long.
Her head would pop out.
Yeah.
And then go right back in.
Which I knew, I could feel that, and I knew that was normal. Like, I knew that I wasn't regressing. I was so grateful. A lot of the books that I read had talked about, like, that's completely normal for that point of birth. I probably should have told you that because you were probably like,
I was sitting there like,
what's going on?
I don't know. I guess I just assumed, like, you can't let it go back in. Like, it's out. You gotta keep going. You gotta keep going. I don't know. But I was watching. Beautiful. It was beautiful.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So then I finally gave one last push, which I will say I pushed, right? I was trying not to push, but I was like, I want this baby out. Like, I cannot like take another one of these. And she came right out.
Shot out.
Yeah. Now I will say, I always would have thought that like pushing the baby out would be the like peak pain of birth. No. I feel like the peak pain is the contractions. Like that, it just was the best feeling ever. Like, it didn't even really hurt. They got her out, got her on my chest, and I went into shock. I was like, I thought I'd be emotional, like meeting my child and hearing her cry. And I was just like,
Your first words were, oh, what a relief.
Yeah, I said that. And then I think I had said, I called her something. I think I said, hey girly, whatever, like she got on my chest. And then I went into complete shock and didn't even like realize she was on me. Like that was crazy. Like I thought I'd be more clear-minded once she came out, but I guess that was just a crazy experience. So from the point of when we got to the hospital and when we had her, what time did we get to the hospital?
I think it was like 2, no? So we couldn't have gotten there. So it was right, like around 2:15,
2:30.
Yeah.
I had her at 5:45. So that's how quick my labor went from a 4 to giving birth. I don't know, it just was a lot at once. And so it was a little scary after she came out and she was on my chest, which I didn't even know this was going on. But in the video, like we have video, I'm not able to share. Watching the video back, you can see that she is turning purple, she stops crying, and the nurses are like not trying to alarm anybody, but they're like, what do we do? And thankfully they really stuck to my birth plan still. And we were waiting for the cord to stop pulsing to cut it. So Sam got to cut the cord once it was time to cut the cord.
Everyone said it's like squid or calamari or something. Not like that. I was hacking at this thing, clamping down on it. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah. So once we got like the umbilical cord cut and they still didn't get her, like she was getting more and more purple, they took her away and they eventually got her to start crying. And I can watch the video back and see, like, I guess the whole room was a little tense because the second she started crying, everybody said, there we go. Like, I was just so unaware.
I was too. I was looking at you. I was just happy that you were like no longer going through what you were just going through.
Yeah, that was just wild. So then once my body kind of calmed down and I got they got these warm blankets on me to help with my shakes, which was very helpful. Then I came back to, and when I say after birth, I had never felt more myself again. Like during prodromal labor, I was just really not doing well mentally. And the second she came out of me and that like shock wore off, I was good. I could chat with anybody. Our friend works at the hospital, so she came in and we got to see her, and I was able to like get up, go to the bathroom, which was amazing, which I think that is one of the benefits of having like an unmedicated birth and something that I wanted. It was just a very wild experience, I guess, to say the least. And it was an answered prayer. I prayed that I would have a quick birth. It was the most intense thing I've ever experienced in my life. Like,
truly, it doesn't compare to anything like that you can think of. Like,
no.
Oh, it's just like this.
No, like I remember a week after I gave birth, I stubbed my toe really hard, and I was telling myself, "You just went through labor. This is fine. This is fine. This is fine." Like it really does help put pain in perspective, which is really nice. So yeah, that's my birth story. It's such a blur for me, so it's hard for me to even like remember key moments in between, and it was such a blur that I was hoping to film our birth, like to have a vlog, you know, that there was no time for that. There was no thoughts for that. It was way too crazy. I got to do unmedicated and they really followed my birth plan to a T, which I was so grateful for. It was such a peaceful and calm experience. Oh, and something that like I guess we didn't really mention, but I knew I wanted worship music playing the whole time, and I really do feel like that was so helpful for me to get through the contractions, especially once I had the gas. Once I got the gas, I could actually hear the music. Like I didn't even know there was music playing until that point. And then I remember being able to I remember Endless Alleluia came on from Bethel Music, and I love that song. And I kind of was like, okay, I can sing along through these contractions or like hum along. And that was really helpful. So it did feel like a beautiful experience. It's hard to explain because it's like you're in so much pain, but then also at the same time, like, you're going through something that you were made to do and designed to do, and it's a miracle. Like, you're witnessing the whole miracle that's been going on for 9 months, and you're at like the very end, and it was just crazy. It was a wild experience.
No, and I highly recommend, if you're the father, it's a weird way to say it, but if you're the dad, to be like involved in like the process. Don't just like sit, you know.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine like going through that without Sam. Like, literally, I needed him by my side every second. And
it might be different though, because I think you had heard that maybe sometimes like women don't want to be touched. Like,
a lot of
don't
women,
be near me. There was at one point that I was like, had my head like right here, and I was just like whispering, and she said, "Can you go get gum?" And I had packed gum. It was in the bag
originally.
But again, it had been a while since we, you know, packed it, so I must have taken it out. Didn't have any gum, but I didn't want to like tell her, hey, I forgot the gum. So I went and got my toothpaste and like water and gurgled that a couple times. You had to ask me a couple times to put more gum in, and I never had any gum.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Be involved is one of the main things. I can't recommend.
Yeah, and I'm so awesome. Grateful. Like, we had a doula, which I highly recommend, because she was even so helpful, not just for me, but for Sam. Just to have somebody there for him as well was amazing.
For my back issues.
Yeah,
and stuff
exactly,
like that.
To help him through the difficult labor. It was wild, a wild ride, and ultimately I'm grateful that it turned out well, and that me and baby girl were healthy and all was good, all things considered.
You were a champ.
Thank you.
Okay, you were a champ.
It was wild. I will say, it doesn't feel like I actually did it. Like, it feels like a dream. Like, I don't even know how to explain that. It was wild.
Did it.
But thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so glad to be coming back, making videos again. It is definitely a process, having a baby and just learning how to do life again. But thank you for your patience, and I hope you guys enjoyed this story. I would love to hear your birth story down below. So comment down below your birth story, and I would love to read through them, no matter what it is, medicated, unmedicated. I'd love to hear it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.